Welcome to another Coffee with Samso. This is the first one during the COVID time. I have Matador Mining here. Keith Bowes here will be chatting to us about what they're doing down in Newfoundland.
That's correct, yes.
Keith, maybe just give us an intro about yourself and then we can go from there.
Sure, thanks very much, Noel. So I'm the technical director for Matador Mining. Matador Mining is an ASX listed company. My background is an engineering background. I'm a chemical engineer, but I've spent the last 25 years or so in the mining industry. I worked for a number of the majors in the beginning of my career. I worked for BHP Billiton, I worked for Anglo American, and I worked for Vale. But I've spent the last 6 years or so in the junior space. And this is probably the fourth junior company that I've been involved with. Previously, I was with Cradle Resources, Boss Resources, and I was also in Equatorial as well, looking at some gold projects here. So, fair amount of experience across a wide range of commodities and also across a fairly wide range of geographical locations as well. Africa's been a big one for me, Australia, and also North America.
Okay. How does it compare coming from a big company to the small cap jurisdiction?
It's a very, very different type of work style. I feel that in the big companies you're boxed in a little bit in some way in terms of you have a specific task to do and that's what you're required to do. In the junior space it's a lot more diverse. You can be one day doing some pretty, mediocre kind of stuff, and the next day you're making some big deals on different things and all that, and you can manage to cover the entire range, which is what I really, really enjoy. So I'm very, very happy that I've actually moved from the big players down into the junior space. It's been a real exciting time for me. Yeah.
Look, I saw you guys at the RIU in Fremantle, I think it was February.
That's correct, yeah.
And struck by what you guys got there. Canada is not a stranger to massive projects.
It's not, no.
It's not a stranger to mega deposits either. I was curious, it's what you guys have, because, first of all, what struck me most was the strike length. Maybe just give us a rundown on what you guys got there and how you got the project, I guess.
Yeah, sure. So I'll start off with what we've got. So at the moment, the Cape Ray project itself consists of 80 kilometres of strike along the Cape Ray Shear. So the Cape Ray Shear is the main gold hosting structure within Newfoundland, and other big projects that are on that shear include Marathon Gold's Valentine Lake project, which has got about 4 million ounces in it, and also Maritime has got some assets up there further north than us. So we've got 80 kilometres that run effectively from the shore down in the southwest corner of Newfoundland, 80 kilometres up the shear. But the resource that we quote and the resource that we put out back in February of this year, the 1.2 million ounces, that resource is only contained within about 15 kilometres of that strike length, and specifically within 4 deposits that probably only make up 2.5 or maybe 3 kilometres of that strike zone. So what we really liked about the project is obviously there's a decent resource there at the moment, the 1.2 million ounces that we've proven up, but there's a lot of greenfield potential in that area as well. And there's probably 65 kilometres of strike that we haven't really explored before. And when we go back and have a look at all the historical work that was done by the previous owners, it's very, very sparse work that's been done up there as well. Probably only a couple of drill holes, a little bit of trenching done by some of the guys, and then some soil samplings and some geophysics as well done over it. So lots of upside for us. And you're asking where we came across the project. I mentioned previously that we're in an office that's got a group of companies in it. We're also involved in another project called Superior Lake, which has got a zinc project over in Ontario. And through the association with that project, we met a group of brothers called the Stairs Brothers, who have a company called Benton Resources. And they're real prospectors in that they go out and actually pig ground, do a little bit of exploration work. And their business model is then to spin those assets out into companies. And when we met up with them in Ontario, it was actually in Thunder Bay, we met up with them. They effectively opened up their books to us and they said, this is all the projects we've got on our books. They had about 20 projects or so. Is there anything that you guys are interested in? And we had a look through everything like that, and Cape Ray stood out to us as being a real good project for us to have a look at. Made them an offer for it and they sold it to us. So
is it mineralized from the surface?
Yes, it is. There's very little cover on top of it, and the 4 deposits that we talk about, Central Zone, Window Glass Hill, Isla Mort and Big Pond, they all outcrop at surface, so you can actually see the outcropping at surface on those deposits. But the 65 kilometres of strike that we've got, a lot of that is under a very shallow till. Therefore, we're looking for exploration techniques that will allow us to identify the deposits under the shallow till material.
I know one of those things, my experience when we had a project in New Zealand, it was 1,200 metres up and steep in forest. So first thing on my mind every time I look at or talked about project is logistics. And is it easy? Is it?
It's very, very easy there, we believe. We're about 25 kilometres or so from Port Basques. So Port Basques is the largest town on the southern shore of Newfoundland, and it actually forms part of the Trans-Canada Highway. So the Trans-Canada Highway actually starts in St. John's, which is the capital of Newfoundland, comes across the top of the island and then down to Port Basques. And then there's a ferry service that runs from Port Basques across to the mainland. And there's 2, sometimes 3 ferries a day that run across there. So very, very easy access to significant, support from ferries, boats, roads, and all that kind of stuff. We then take, there's a secondary road, and the A470 that runs along the bottom part of the island. You go across probably about 15 kilometres on that road, and then we have our own access road that goes up to our site of 18 kilometres. So when we were doing our field program last year, our geologists actually lived in Port Basques and drove to site every day. That was the model that we used for it. So very, very easy access from there. We're also very fortunate with the power situation as well. Newfoundland has excess power at the moment, and are actually looking for customers. So I've been in discussions with the power providers on the island, and they're currently doing a study for us in terms of how they could get power to the site to us. And there's probably 3 or 4 different options that they're looking at that we could use to get power there.
And in terms of, I'm just looking at your presentation here that you guys have on your central zone that you talked about. One of the things I've noticed of late is that every time I've looked at stuff, maybe it's just because all the easy pickings are gone, been in this for 30 years, there's moments where if you could make a good project out of a stroke of a few hundred metres.
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm seeing stuff that runs for kilometres. And my first go-to project that I talk about a lot is Gold Road, and they have the whole belt. Right? And then you guys have got this number of kilometres. Obviously, if you get production happening, near mine exploration is not going to be an issue, I guess.
It would be very, very easy for us to be able to do that. I mean, our strategy at the moment is we have the 1.2 million ounces. When you convert that into mineable ounces, probably about a 50, maybe 60% conversion through there. So we've got somewhere between 500, maybe 600,000 ounces of mineable resource at the moment, we believe. The way that we're looking at our project moving forward, we'd like to be something in the order of maybe 800 to 1 million ounces of mineable gold in order for us to make a decision to mine. So that's the target from our exploration program and from our study work that we're currently doing at the moment. But there's lots and lots of upside along those strikes.
I think, going forward in terms of, whatever the new world will become, gold price is going north.
Yes, that's for sure.
However, when I spoke to Rick Rule about these things, he did say that if gold did go to the numbers that people are throwing at, that means it's actually a bad thing because something's gone wrong in our world.
Yeah.
But I think 16 or 1700 US now, 2700 Aussie. Those are good margins going forward.
They're very, very good margins for us at the moment. But it's a really good point in terms of the gold price. I mean, even at a $1,250 gold price, would still be an economic project going forward. We're confident. I mean, we're doing a study at the moment. I think we spoke about that when we were in Fremantle at the RIU conference. We're currently undertaking a study at the moment, a PEA or a scoping study. We're starting to see some of the numbers come out of that, and we would expect our all-in sustaining cost for gold to be somewhere around the $800 an ounce. We think we're in that sort of range at the moment.
US you're talking about?
US dollars an ounce, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I keep saying to people, for the producers, we don't want the world to be in an issue, so the gold price to be 3,000 or 5,000 or whatever the numbers that have been thrown at, but at this kind of figure, everyone's making good money.
Exactly, yeah. And you'll see a lot of really low-grade things coming through as well, and we pride ourselves on being a high-grade open-pit operation. I mean, we're expecting our head grades to be something in the order of 2, maybe 2.2 grams per tonne feeding into our plant. So from an open cut perspective, that's a really high-grade deposit to be working with.
In that scenario, I guess, you do want that continue, that long strike, you do want a bigger sort of volume mass.
We do, yeah.
And that would allow you to have economies of scale, I guess. It's like the super pit,
I think, to be honest, what I think is going to happen with our project, I don't think we're going to find one massive pit. I think we're going to find multiple big pits. So we talk about the central zone's got about 800,000 ounces in it, which is really the core of our project. Window Glass Hill, which is our second largest deposit, has got about 240,000 ounces in at the moment. If we were to find another deposit that's got another 240, 300,000 ounces in it, I think that's the way the project would grow. And probably another deposit's got another 300,000 ounces in it or something like that.
I guess, I mean, that's a good thing, as long as it's you're not like, 100 kilometres away.
Exactly right,
cutting ore from 180 kilometres or 200 kilometres.
As I said, our 1.2 million ounces sit from 15 kilometres. I mean, they're all contained within a 15 kilometre strike length at the moment. And even within that area, we're thinking we're going to find some more stuff in there as well. So very, very highly productive from a relatively small area.
From a government, are they helpful? I mean,
very, very helpful. Huh? Yeah, I've been really impressed with working with the Newfoundland and Labrador government. I've been fortunate in that I've had an opportunity to meet a couple of the ministers there as well. Actually, the local member of parliament for Port of Basque, which our project falls under, is the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General for Newfoundland and Labrador. And I've met up with him a couple of times, and he is very, very pro in terms of getting the project up and running. And through him, I've been introduced to the Minister of Mines as well for the area, and she's very, very supportive of the project as well. Met with a number of the regulators there, and I have regular meetings with the regulators in terms of updating them with our environmental permitting. Very, very supportive of us. And what the Newfoundland government has actually done is they've, towards the middle of last year, I think it was, they issued a white paper called Mining 2030. And what they want to try and do in order of growing the provincial economy is to have 5 new mines on the island or in Labrador by 2030, and they've identified as us as one of those potential mines. So we're getting a lot of support from them as well, which is great.
I guess, well, going back to as an analogy, when we were in New Zealand, everyone said, "Oh, geez, New Zealand, that's green country. You can't do any mining." But prior to the present government, they were actually very pro-mining.
Yeah. And
I found that they were very supportive, more supportive even in WA or Australia in that sense. In where you are, what you've said there about them having all this kind of policy, is there any environmental issues, or is this a tick the box kind of thing? Do the right
It's a tick the box thing, which is one of the things why we like Canada. Canada is very similar to Australia in terms of there's a very defined process that you need to go through. So as long as you go through those steps and you meet all the different hurdles, each of the different steps, we don't see any issues coming up with the project. We're actually fairly well advanced with our environmental permitting. We're actually in a position to be able to submit an environmental impact statement towards the end of this year, if we decided to do that. And the reason why we're so well ahead with our environmental work is that the previous owners of the project, the Benton Resources that I spoke about just now, they'd actually started the process for us already back in 2016. So they'd submitted what they call the project description. Both the provincial government and the federal government have provided the guidelines under which the baseline studies must be taken. They had started some of their baseline studies as well. When I went and spoke to the feds and to the provincial government to ask them whether we could continue the process without going back to the step 1 effectively, they said as long as our project fits within the project description originally submitted, then there was no issues with it. And ours does as well. So we've been able to pick up effectively halfway through the environmental process, just complete the baseline studies and submit the documentation. At the moment, we don't see any environmental issues. There are no real communities close by. First Nations is normally a big issue in Canada, but Newfoundland itself doesn't have any original First Nations groups, so they don't have any treaties like they do in the rest of Canada. So they're treated as a normal stakeholder within the business, and they're looking for things like jobs, training, education opportunities, and that kind of stuff. And I've met with the chiefs of both of the groups over there, and at the moment, very, very supportive with us, and I get on really well with the chiefs over there.
Any issues, or any potential hurdles geologically from the ore body?
No, I don't believe there's any geological issues at the moment. So our geos have spent a fair amount of time over the last 2 years trying to understand the geology within the area. There's 2 very distinct types of geology, or geologies within which the resource is contained. Our central zone is within a graphitic schist, but our other deposits are contained within a granite. there's two different types of structures or two different types of geologies there, and we're looking at those things very separately and trying to understand what are the signatures for each of those to help our exploration program moving on. So from a geology perspective, I don't believe we have any issues going forward.
I mean, gold, even prior to all this, was I've sort of been a gold bull in the normal sense, not in the big sense, because I think, back then we were talking about, inflationary issues, people printing more money and all this kind of stuff. This has thrown a bigger mix into the pot. I think it's I like this sector. I think in going forward, gold or precious metals, as I've learned over time, it's a big insurance, and this has been a massive disruption to normality.
For sure, yes.
And I think the credibility of gold or precious metals as a factor of insurance, it's gone a bit lot high in my thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I like the story. I think it's easy. I mean, it's always, new projects are sometimes always better than old projects, in my opinion.
Old projects always got problems, is why they were shut down, isn't it?
Yeah, and I always said to people, there's a reason why this thing is still not mining.
Yeah.
And someone will proclaim that they've got heaps and heaps of gold resource underneath, but why didn't that work then? Or cost is relatively common the same way. So there must be a reason. It's like renovating a house. Right? It's probably easy to knock it down.
Start off all over. You always see the problems underneath the walls, do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Keith, look, thank you for your time. Fantastic. I think I like the story. I mean, it's a nice jurisdiction. Now I believe strike length is imperative. There's not been a lot of greenfields exploration, or a lot of brownfields, near mine stuff. And I do believe a lot of this new stuff is a fantastic way to go.
For sure, yeah.
Yep, thank you for your time, and maybe we'll catch up again.
No, that'll be great, and I'd really enjoy that, Jeff.
Yeah, hopefully you'll be drilling away.
Yes, I hope so, and we'll have some new results to talk about as well. Should be great. And talk about the scoping study as well, which should be up by the time.
That's
the
great.
next couple of weeks, yeah.
Okay.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Okay.
Cheers, bye.